Live from the Connections Studio Suites, it's Connections. Connections is relationship radio.
She's bouncing in the chair already. Welcome, Connections Radio. Melissa Fox, and with me tonight is Eliana Gilad. Can I say that better or worse?
You did. You sound like a native.
She's a two-time TEDx presenter, a motivational speaker, healing voice mentor, therapeutic singing trainer. The list really does go on. Her new international bestseller is called Emerge Triumphant, Thrive Through Uncertainty. And we'd like to welcome you to Connection Show tonight. How are you?
Thank you. I'm really grateful to be here, right now.
It is the perfect place at this moment. You might be right about that. So I want to enlighten our listeners about your story. So give us a little bit of background on yourself and how you've come to be the person that you are.
All right. Well, here's a turning point. Imagine, all right, so I'm looking outside my window right now. I was born under the Hollywood sign in Cedars of Lebanon Hospital, which was a prophecy, I guess, of my future in the Middle East. Because I lived in the Middle East for 20 plus years through 3 wars, displacement, social unrest, and came out the other side thriving. And thrived through the uncertainty, and here I am, full circle back, very happy to be helping others to thrive through uncertainty. Now, the story in the middle, I didn't leave Hollywood and Los Angeles for the Middle East. In fact, if you would have told me 30 years ago that I would live 20 plus years in the Middle East, I would have sent you to the loony bin. I left Los Angeles for France. And I was a broadcaster for CBS television. So I love, when you said radio, it's like, oh, I love it. And I sat next to the gentleman who read the wire services. If any of you watched the Olympics, the Winter Olympics in 1992, it was my voice who you heard broadcast the opening and closing ceremonies. And I had already thrown away my television.
Wow.
And it was before internet. I am sitting there next to the guy who reads the wire services, UPI, Reuters, API. And it was like this little box. And he goes, God, you wouldn't believe what's happening in the world. And after a while, excuse me, I got enough courage. I go, I actually do. I actually threw away my television set already. He looked at me like I was from the moon. He goes, why? I go, because it's always the same story. Bad news. He goes, what? I go, excuse me, war, rape, pillage. Good news is a ceasefire. And it's the same thing all around the world. He goes, oh, you're from the loony bin. Let's look. I go, okay. And it was that, he goes. And so it became this joke between us. He goes, I swear I'm going to find you your good news story. And during those Olympic Games, I prayed to use my voice for a higher purpose, and Voices of Eden. And this medically proven healing voice approach is the result. And those 20 years in the Middle East are a result.
Wow.
So that today, 30 years later, I can be of service to help others to connect to their true voice inside and show up and be who they really are and, walk this path that we're all walking on together into this, great unknown that no one has an idea where we're going. But I've learned that we don't really need to know how we show up today. That's why I said right here, right now, I'm delighted to be here. And you perform such an important service by bringing constructive stories to media. It's really important. Really important.
Well, okay, so if you're just tuning in to Connection Show tonight, we are talking with Eliana Gilad. She is, she's a million different things, but right now she's an author and she's an inspiration to us because, I hear that before you went to the Middle East, you were in Paris and you were singing in the inner city trains. Is
Oh,
that
all right.
so?
Yeah,
What did
all
you
right.
learn from that?
So after working with CBS, in the Olympics, it got to be, let's say, before I left the States, I had the project with CBS before I left the States, and so um, this was 1992. So there was a recession going on in the States. And I was like a yuppie on a spiritual path. All right. And when the recession came, we're not firing you. We're just not continuing your position, and look for another job. And I'll die. I will die if I can't have another job, because since I was a little girl, Melissa, or anybody who's listening, do you ever have, like, there's something inside of you that's just pushing you forward, but you don't have words for it?
Yeah, I've had that push, that momentum.
That nudge, that nudge. And ever since I was born in LA under that sign, but I never felt like the US was my home. And when I was a little girl, it's like, when I'm grown up, I can have friends all over the world, and I'm going to go visit them. And pretty much I have lived my life that way. But I grew up in LA, we achieve our enlightenment here. And and it's Hollywood. You look good and everything's fine and you're gorgeous, and you feel like crap inside if you're not living true to yourself.
Oh my goodness.
And so when they said, we'll keep paying you, but look for another job, I said, I cannot do that. I cannot do that. And it was, I could see the writing on the wall of what's happening now. And I go, if I leave now, if I jump into the unknown, which I was terrified about, then, in another 20, 30 years, I'll already have made changes, and then I'll be able to come back here and make and be of service. What does that have to do with singing on the trains? So, fast forward, I'm in France. I finished the Olympics. And again, I find myself working for a living. And it was New Year's. And there was this nudge. And it was just like, I'm going to die, I need to know what it is that I'm here for. Like that, since I was a little girl, that very much pushed me. And the voice goes, "Oh, what, Miss Faith? What with your faith? You're going to buy bread in the marketplace? It's just not realistic. You can't do that." And I'm like, you know what? I will do or die. I'd rather die. So if the bell rings, I had this little test with myself. If the bell rings, I'll take the job or the gig, whatever the project is. And if it doesn't, I'm taking it. I'm not doing that anymore.
Wow.
Die. I am fine. I'll die. And I got to a place, I said no enough times that I ran out of money. And I had a monthly Metro pass. And I heard about this spiritual support group for creativity. What? But I didn't have a better idea. I go, well, I can take the train there. I'll go listen, imbibe some inspiration. And I was like on my knees. And so I go to this place, and on the way from the train station to the meeting place, I remember that everybody's supposed to bring some kind of art. And I had no art to bring. I remembered a Hebrew spiritual from my childhood. I said, if I need to, I'll sing that. I'm not going to have to, because I'm just sitting in the corner to imbibe inspiration. And I get there, and it's this big circle, so I couldn't hide in the corner. And it got to my turn. I sang that spiritual. There was this silence you could cut with a knife. And I shared that I hadn't eaten in 2 days. Don't offer me jobs. That's not the issue. There's always McDonald's. But why am I here? I'm ready to die. This man comes up to me. He goes, "Your voice speaks. You have work to do with your voice." He puts his hand in his jeans pocket, takes out a crumpled piece of paper. On it writes 2 train stations. He goes, "Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. He was very precise. You go to Don Rochefort, the name of the train station. You get on the intercity train and you sing that song there. The people on the train need it. I'm like, the guy's certified loony. You know, if I'm not gonna, you want to know more?
Yeah, stand tuned. There it is.
Stay
There's
tuned.
the tease. You're listening to Connections. You stay right there. We'll be right back.
Connections is Relationship Radio.
Look at us. We work like dogs, we drink, and then we work like hungover dogs.
Oh, I love it.
Strong words from a strange man.
I'm thinking about having you examined for mental illness or drug use or massive head injury.
This is Connections. Broadcasting live every night at 10 Eastern.
You know, you leave now and you gotta get a nap.
This is Connection. Connect.
That's our best buddy, Linda Nunez, singing all these intro and outro musics. Welcome back to Connections. It's Melissa Fox and our special guest tonight, Eliana Gilad. She is joining us to talk about Voices of Eden, the ancient healing and transformational music that she's providing, as well as her new book, which is called Emerge Triumphant, Thrive Through Uncertainty. So you got the nudge too, huh? You know, I got that right before the break.
Well, yeah. Well, so continuing the story. So this guy goes, go to the train. I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you like certified nuts yourself? Like the guy at CBS told me, you know? And I went home like, you know, not knowing what was going to happen. And then the next morning I find myself popping out of bed, going to the train station. You know, the voice is like, what would they say back in the States? Are you like nuts? Are you homeless? You know, you lost it. You know, and I get to the train station and the people are, you know, they're going to their work day. They're getting on the train. I am not on it. And then at last minute, the doors close and I find myself running in the doors like Superwoman. I like push them open. I jump in the train and everybody's sitting there. You know, in Europe, it's not, those of you, if there are people who are listening from Europe, you know, it's like not okay to have eye contact in public. Everybody's with a newspaper or a, you know, or a book. You know, this is before the days of cell phones. And I say, good morning. I have a small song to start off the day on the right foot. And I sing this Hebrew spiritual. And I'm like, and like the books come down and the papers come down. And, and at the end of this song, there's like, again, there's like the day before in that room, in the big circle. And there's like stress you could cut with a knife. And I'm like, okay, God, you know, like, answer me now. They're waiting for me to ask for money. And I'm like, you know, haven't eaten in 2 days. And I either answer me right now or I will die on the spot. The choice is yours, but I'm not asking for money. And what came out of my mouth is, I'm not asking you for money. I'm not here to bust. If I'm here to ask you for anything, it's that you do something kind for yourself today. Like, respect yourself. Like, just be kind to yourself. Like, simple dimple, you know, easy peasy. Really? How's it, you know, how you doing with that? If somebody actually here will do that, I gave big time. And I find myself walking up and down the aisle and like a nice California, go, have a nice day. You know, and they like pushed money in my hands. And I didn't have a purse on me. I'd brought no hat, you know, wasn't there. I had this long dress and I remember making this pocket out of the fabric and walking out of there like amazed. For the first time in my life, Melissa, I knew I contributed something more to this planet. I went back the next day and there was this Argentinian busker who followed me out. He goes, that's amazing what you do. You need to add amazing grace. I'm like, that's that's a good idea. So I had those two songs, and I was going up and down on this train. And at the end of that week, I was offered this, yuppie, comfortable job. And I had to decide whether I was going to take it or not. But if I took the job, I would have to stop singing on the trains. And I realized that I actually had found my calling, and that the calling it wasn't performing music. It was about daring to show up in the midst of uncertainty and be real and be authentic, not bullhooey, looking good, like I learned growing up in Hollywood. And if we'd only dare stop long enough to connect inside, we could get the answer to any question 24/7. You don't even need a Wi-Fi hookup, And if we dare listen to what our inner voice is guiding us to, then we can develop the courage to act upon it. And when we develop the courage to act upon that and express that, then that provides us with such confidence. And what's wrong with that? And imagine that we hear each voice, each one of us in their own time does that. That to me is Eden. I'm one person amongst billions on this planet, but that is what this entire approach is about: creating an Eden on earth, one authentic voice at a time. And the reason that I am doing this radio tour now, in celebration of the launch of Emerge Triumphant, Thrive Through Uncertainty, is that all you have to do is open up your radio or your computer, and you're going to get exactly what the guy reading the wire services was recounting to me. That was exactly 30 years ago. That was in 1992. If figuring things out and being right or wrong made the difference, we would be living in a much different reality today.
Agreed.
Maybe, just maybe, the answer lies inside you and not outside of you. Your voice makes a difference, and you're really important.
And she means that to everybody. She's not talking about just my voice, which of course we know is luscious. But
It's true.
oh, stop. We are talking with Eliana Gilad, and she is, among other things, an author of a new book, Emerge Triumphant, Thrive Through Uncertainty. Couple of questions for you. First of all, why are we so concerned with what others think about us? Now, certainly myself, I run by this. What you think about me is none of my dang business, okay? But a lot of other people are very concerned about, like you said, putting that face forward, like LA. Gotta look great, feel crappy inside, but gotta look good on the outside. Why is that? Why are we afraid?
That's like the $1 million question, isn't it? And here's how I see it. So if the essence of all matter, the essence of everything is vibratory, right? The atom, and everything's made out of atoms. Our, air, earth, our bodies, and sound is the first manifestation from. It's like we're here, we're airwaves here, we're vibration. It's, if we were on a physical radio, it would be, what are the hertz? Does this radio, I don't know if on internet, is there a hertz on the?
54, 5:40 a.m., so that would be on the hertz.
Oh, 5:40 a.m. Okay, perfect. That's a hertz. All music, every radio station across the globe is being broadcast now at the same time. But we got to open up our radios meaning our bodies are like radios. So what does that have to do with why do we care about what people think? We are so disconnected from our own radios. And what we're connected to is the frequency of the coulda, shoulda, woulda, whatever in our mind is programmed in. And we're not even being present. We're just reacting like parrots. So if I'm not listening to me, if I'm not connected to my true voice inside, that by nature, it's disempowering. I don't feel confident. We're looking outside ourselves for answers in the wrong direction. And it's how's it working for you?
Yeah, exactly. Is that working out, people?
And when we dare stop to listen inside, the answers are there. And then we get confidence. I'm afraid of what you think of me if I don't know what I think of me.
There it is. That is it right there. We're going to take a quick break. You guys can think on what we just talked about here. I think you'll come to the conclusion that you need to listen to your inner voice. But wait, no, we'll get to that in just a second. You're listening to Connections, relationship radio with a twist.
Connections is relationship radio.
I'm drunk right now, so that kind of stuff amuses me.
Buy me a beer, $2 a glass. Come on, help me, I'm freezing by.
Welcome back to Connection Show. Yeah, cute little bumpers. If you have your own radio show, contact LindaNunezMusic.com and she will give you all the ins, the outs. Have you ever wanted your own intro music? How about that? We've got Eliana Gilad. And what I mean is, seriously, Eliana, you have music all around you. Every day, music in our head, music, everything. The buzzes of the streets, that's music, everything. It's not just cacophony. And I always wanted my own entrance song, like the door opens and oh, Melissa's here.
I love it.
Oh, like back in Bonanza days when the cook would come in and they would like play the ding 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 ding. Oh. Anyway, yes. Welcome back, people. Great show going on for you. If you just tuned in, you can always get the podcast on the iHeartRadio app. Just look for Connections Relationship Radio. That's what we do here. With the twist, though. The twist is me. I'm a little twisted, and that's okay. I own it, and that's kind of what we're talking about at this moment.
It is.
How?
It is, because that's brilliant, Melissa, because really, if you're going to really, like the last question, why do we care so much about what other people think? Well, because we're not giving a hoot about what we think. So,
Mm-hmm.
And in order to really hear your voice, you kind of got to be willing to go out of your mind, because the answers, they're beyond cognitive mind. What's in our cognitive mind and in intellect is, and we discuss this a lot in the book and with really cool, fun little exercises to help you be clear, calm, connected.
And the book is called Emerging Triumphant, by the way. Thrive Through Uncertainty. Okay, so in the book, the exercises and stuff help us to get outside of our own head, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. It explores the resurgence of an ancient feminine approach. I'm though I was born under this Hollywood sign, I'm actually a born member of the Levite tribe.
Ooh.
Both on my mom's side and my dad's side, which makes me a direct descendant of Moses, Aaron, and their elder sister Miriam, the prophetess Miriam. Have you ever heard of the prophetess Miriam?
Not exactly, but I don't know what my listeners have. So how about we just go ahead and explain?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So who's heard of, who Moses is? Heard of Moses?
Sure.
You can see the Disney, Charlton Heston movie, the 10 Commandments. And this has nothing to do with religion, by the way.
Oh.
That Miriam, she was the one who prophesied her brother's birth. She, in pre-biblical times, we were very sophisticated in our knowledge and manipulation of the use of sound for spiritual health and engineering purposes. What? Yes.
Heck?
In those days, leaders would regularly retreat to temples that were structures. And in those days, temples were like a combination of a spa, a hospital, a university, a community center, and we don't have that today.
It was a voting booths too, I think. They did everything there.
Yeah. And they would avail themselves of special applications of wordless sound and rhythm that would bypass the cognitive mind and connect them to higher mind that would provide clarity and calm that would then allow them to get answers for whatever was ailing, whatever question, and then be able to make decisions and move forward more appropriately. Miriam was one of the leaders, and she was adept in the use of sound and rhythm. In fact, we see this in the biblical story of the waters parting. Well, it says in the scriptures, and Miriam led the people, and and the women played and danced. But we in modern times, singing and dancing, it's nothing like that. What if they were so adept in the use of their voices that the sound parted the waters? I wouldn't dare. It's like, this is the first time on radio I'm saying this. It's so satisfying. I first was able to say this in public in my second TED Talk. You can go see this. The second TED Talk is called Trust Your Silent Voice. I wouldn't dare speak like this for fear of being, hung on the cross.
Oh.
But I would look for the science that would corroborate with what I know intuitively and what I've spent 30 years and initiated a medical research project that proves this in the middle of war, in a 50-50 Israeli-Palestinian neonatal intensive care unit in wartime. And I'm not a doctor. And our research is the base of, at this point, about 26 different researches. It's a seminal foundational research today in the field of healing sound. When you go to Trust Yourself, you can see actually the research in the first TED Talk, which is called Your Voice, Make It Heard. In the second TED Talk, while preparing for that, I found a research out of the University of Zurich, where it's like the coolest thing. They show water like in a faucet. Mm-hmm. You open up the faucet, the water comes out of the faucet, but there's like this contraption connected to the faucet, and they broadcast 240 hertz. I don't know. I can't remember. I think it is actually 200. Funny that it's the same as the radio station. And the water starts jumping. The water parts. They come into little droplets just dancing around. It's amazing.
So you could prove your theory, sacrilege as you think it is.
My theory, and I dared. It's like live TED. I love it. And there's another one from the former USSR, where it shows the sound lifting rocks, because it's speculated that through the use of sound is how the pyramids could be built, to lift.
Right, we haven't figured out otherwise. Either that or aliens.
Buildings and Stonehenge, there's like 10 years ago, there was a research that came out saying that Stonehenge evidently was built for sound and by sound. There's a whole new field called archaeoacoustics.
Ooh, this sounds like a new job for me. Just writing it down.
Actually, you're in Florida. You know what? It's so cool. Melissa, one of the main researchers is out of the University of Florida.
Oh, awesome. Gator Nation.
Yeah, like they're really, and there are projects. I was involved with I was invited to present in China at this archaeoacoustic conference. That's how I met these people. Yeah, between Florida, the University of Florida, and Malta, University of Malta, because there's like a 5,000-year-old structure in Malta.
Right.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. And we seem to. There's some connection with ancient Israel. We don't know how. And I know. I live there.
You got it all figured out, right? Hey, we're going to take another break here because it's just flying past us, and I've got so much to ask our guest. Eliana Gilad is with us. She's an author. Obviously, she is so much more than that. The book is called Emerge Triumphant, Thrive Through Uncertainty. You can find that at voicesofeden.com/book. We'll be right back. You're listening to Connections, Relationship Radio with a Twist.
Connections is Relationship Radio.
What is wrong with you people? You don't get no better show than this.
This is Connections.
The hair is standing up on the back of my knees.
Live from 10 to midnight.
What a fun bunch they are. I'd love to hang out with them.
Weeknights at 10 Eastern on the Connections Radio Network at connectionshow.com.
Yep, you can always find the podcasts of the shows on iHeartRadio app. Just search Connections-Relationship Radio. And of course, we're always on social media at Connection Show, or you can search Melissa Fox. That's me. Our guest today, very special guest, Eliana Gilad. And Eliana, how are you doing? You okay? You hanging in there? You holding up all right? She's singing for us.
There, now you have a song for yourself.
That is a nice song. My entrance song now. All right, so there's so many questions I want to ask you, so little time to get it done. How you mentioned sound, moving rocks, possibly parting the sea. How is it used in ancient healing techniques? Can you explain that for the audience?
Well, yeah, it's related to what I was referring to in our last segment, that people would regularly retreat to temples, ancient structures that were built for and by sound. In our, up until before the pandemic, I would lead, and we'll start it again at some point when we can travel to these ancient structures, in ancient Israel, and they would avail themselves of special applications of sound, the purpose of which is to quiet the cognitive mind. It's like, that is what it's.
Isn't the old quote, music hath tones that soothe the savage breast? Although often people make it beast because they're like, oh, breast, ooh. But it is. Isn't that it? Music has tones.
Exactly. Because of this thing we were speaking about before. Because vibration is the essence of all matter. When you connect to the source of the sound, beyond cognitive sound, that's intellectual. That's a very shallow level of it. But ultrasound is a use. That's a modern use that we have of ultrasound, right? Mm-hmm. It's the vibration that goes through, it's the waves that go through the tissues, measure the tissues, come back through, measures the heat, comes back through the machine and translates into pictures. But we see in our brain, we see the machine. It's not the machine doing the work, it's the sound doing the work, it's the vibration. And our bodies are much more powerful than the computer. So when you connect to the source of the sound, beyond the sound, beyond your mind, in the silence behind it, there you connect, you hold the entire power of the cosmos in your hands. And this is what the ancients knew. This is what Miriam knew and led. This is my tradition for thousands of years, unbroken, just handed, well, it wasn't handed down and taught to me. It's Uh,
Always learned. You learned this, and you sought
I
this
learned
out.
this, but nobody taught it to me. I learned it from direct perception, one day at a time, over 60,000 hours, 30 years. And then how do you prove that? That's how I went during the war to the hospital to suggest a research project. And they agreed to a test. And that resulted in a 3-year fully funded research project.
Wow. Hey, quick sidebar. You mentioned earlier, and you just mentioned again, war. What was it like working through, 3 different wars? What the heck was that like for you as American as well?
Yeah, well, it was intense. But, it was after... people think, we look at John Wayne movies or, movies, and you think it's not like bombs are 24/7, and in the 2006 war, for example, I was living in Upper Galilee in this like bucolic vacation village overlooking the Sea of Galilee. I mean, we're talking like the Garden of Eden.
Sounds idyllic, yeah.
I mean, really beautiful. And, everybody fled who could to the center of the country. And I thought, where am I going to flee and then pretend like there's nothing going on? It's like the measure of your calm isn't when all is well. It's the measure of when all the caca is hitting the fan. And so we had already been past the research. I was building the model, going back to see what did I do every week in that intensive care unit. So I thought, well, this will be a really good test in the middle of a war. If I'm going to go, I don't know when my body's going to go. My body's going to go. It's going to go whenever it's going to go. Sure. And what I discovered, like, what was it like? Well, so when the Katyusha is like a bomb. So before when the bomb is dropping and coming into the airwaves, there's a sound, there's 90 seconds, and there's a siren that goes off. It gives you enough time to get into a bomb shelter. And if you're in a place where there's no bomb shelter, like if you're in I was in my house and there was like a little, you go to the safe place is a place where there are no windows. Mm-hmm. And so there was this short little hallway in the middle of my house, and I would sit there, and one day, it's like the siren goes off, and I'm like, how come we can't all just live together in peace? Like the mind is going, and the voice answers back, well, sweetheart, why do you expect everybody else to live in peace? How peaceful are you able to live in war? War and peace, they're flip sides of the same coin. It's like, so how are you showing up? And that just shut me up. It's like, whoa. And it brought on such a sense of calm because it just brought home, one, I have no control of when I live or die. We like to think we do.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't, and when bombs are, it's like you really know.
Right.
Or like when you experience death, you know what? In the last 3 weeks, I have experienced 3 passings. One of them is of my publisher, who is responsible for bringing this book, Emerge, Triumph, and Thrive Through Uncertainty, to #1 international bestseller within 24 hours of
release. Yeah.
Of release. And the woman last week up and dies. In fact, today, 5 hours from now, we were supposed to have our launch interview.
Oh, goodness. Oh, my goodness. We can't end on that note, and we're getting close.
No, but I'm speaking. This is not popular subject for airways. But sweethearts, I'm intentionally speaking this way because there is something beyond our physical bodies. There is something beyond, and having lived through those wars enables me to stay. It's like shocking. My body's in shock. Yes, I'm grieving, but there's something that's beyond our bodies.
Oh, yeah, I believe that.
And, and the sound is the essence of all matter. I'm connecting, I'm using these same tools. After 30 years, I'm still learning through using them, and I'm at peace, even with 3 deaths in the last 3 weeks. How would you like to be at peace no matter what's going on around you? Bombs drop in, people drop in, or your own inner war. It is so possible. Your power is inside, not outside.
I agree. You know what? We got to cut this short. It seems like we're not, though. I know. It's just, we've been here, we're doing it, we've done it, and you need to go and find more information about Eliana Gilad. Go to emergetriumphantnow.com if you want to learn how to thrive through uncertainty, or voicesofeden.com/book and pick up the book. I invite you to come back to Connections again. I hope that you will. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was awesome learning from you. Eliana Gilad.
Yeah, thanks for your great work.
Oh, stop it now. We'll be back next week.
Laughing time is over.
There you have it, boys. Case closed.
You've been listening to Connections. Find tonight's show and replays of our past shows on connectionsshow.com.
Well, what do you think about that?